today in the morning. I think Paul was talking it at our inauguration, and I counted it, Paul. It is some 5 times you have used the word energy, you know. So I think a lot of energy should be there in the room. One of the things what we are talking today, we are, of course, I have been told to introduce. I can introduce the session, what has been told at Natural Diamonds. It is confidence, collaboration, and consumer. So you are talking about desire and diamond go together, of course. But for that, if it go together, for that, I think the confidence is required in this room. You know what I'm talking about. Who are there in this room, all these things, that confidence should be there. But that, of course, they will talk about this in details. But I will tell you where from this today's session comes. We were, at least every year, when we go to JCK, DBS does a breakfast meet there. And every year, I had this dream that it should come at IIJS. And this year I told them, they told that, yes, we can do it. So I think that is the background on what we are doing this. And of course, we are happy and we are proud that this has come at IIJS, and nowhere better than IIJS, where they should be doing it. Today, IIJS, whatever you accept or not accept, has turned to be one of the shows in the world. And in our country, the way the diamond demand is increasing or growing, you can understand the show. You don't have to talk about that. That I think Paul has already told the energy. They are understanding the energy, what is there in the Indian market. And with these good words, I'll just introduce. I think Paul, Emma, and Shweta does not require any introduction to this group. Only one thing, I was talking to certain people outside, they were asking that Emma is having OBE. What is OBE, Of course, I have taken the permission from her to talk about that. OBE is Order of the British Empire. It is the second highest, award the government gives there, just like our Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan. So I think we should be, proud that Emma is with us. And of course, Paul, they have, everywhere I have seen another thing. Of course, I'm again taking the liberty. When I was taking their positions, everywhere I have seen a vice president. Now, somewhere there's a senior vice president, somewhere there's an executive vice president. So, of course, but of course, Paul is Paul. Paul is the executive vice president of DBS, the DBS group. And of course, Emma is the senior vice president for government relations and at the industry relations. And Shweta is, of course, the SVP of Global Affairs, and also she is the CEO of Forevermark. So this is what I can introduce them. Without going into any further introduction, I leave it upon them to go into the story of knowledge. I think all of us, we should not lose the confidence of diamonds. The consumer has not lost it. I do not believe it, that consumer has lost it. I think we should not lose it. This room, at least I have an experience with this room of the people for the last 2 decades, and they have not lost it. And let us hear how the DBS, whom all these room people believe that they are the custodian of diamonds, how they are taking it forward. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Sabyasachi. Yes, we've got OBE for Emma. And I sat there thinking that most people are sitting there looking at me going, OAP. Not quite OAP. But anyway, let's move on. I just like to bid everyone a warm welcome. Also, as I was arriving, I had actually was Kirit who said to me, I'm really starting to get into the culture of India. I'm arriving at about the same time as most people arrive at events in India, particularly as we were almost a little late this morning as well. So apologies if we've been keeping people waiting. The traffic has been pretty extensive today. Obviously, I want to bid everyone a really warm welcome. It's great for joining us here. We have got as Sabyasachi said, he asked me in Las Vegas at the JCK if we could do a similar sort of event, and we brought something that we think is both similar and relevant to India. So yes, I'll run through ultimately a quick overview of the strategy and where we're sitting, perhaps a touch on the market and some of the reasons why perhaps we're a little bit more positive. And then likewise, Emma will take us through some more Cs and how we're operating in this part. And I think, likewise, the most really also, I think, exciting part of this, because there's lots of videos, and so Shweta gets the best bit of this part of the presentation. But it would be remiss of me to, before we start, not to actually just, if you'll help me, welcome some special guests that are with us from the Republic of Botswana. There are colleagues from DTC Botswana, and we have Mayor, sorry, I'm going to get into big trouble here, Mayor Curley, the Permanent Secretary for the President of the Republic of Botswana, and Chairperson of DCB. Maybe stand up and just acknowledge, if you wouldn't mind, PSP. Likewise, we have Ray Beaufort, the Attorney General for the Republic of Botswana. And also a Director of DCB. We have Dr. Harit, the Secretary for Macroeconomic and Financial Policy for the Republic of Botswana at the Ministry of Finance. And we have indeed, where are we, the Managing Director, Mayor Lebulu of DTC Botswana. And then lastly, let me also welcome, because I know it's his first trip also to Botswana, Maseho, who's the Head of Operations at DTCB. Please stand up and say hi. And as I said earlier today, you know, it's important to note, and I think most people in this room will note, just how important diamonds are to Botswana. I said earlier, you know, over 30% of Botswana's GDP, and likewise over 70% of foreign exchange earnings. So we can see that they're pivotal to the economy of Botswana. And likewise, I think our distinguished guests who, as I said, apart from being on the board of DTC Botswana, are key players within the government and have taken almost a week out of their busy schedules to make sure they're here with us today. And not just today, of course, but the week to look at the industry here in India. And they recognize, along with all of us, just how important India plays in the pipeline of natural diamonds. So we're going all the way from pipeline, from the as I will on the strategy, from the upstream, and getting an understanding of the roles that we play as we move along that value chain, and really getting to understand exactly the value and the collaboration. You'll hear a lot of the C's as we go through this, that we are so important to make sure we're successful in this pipeline. So let's, and I apologize for those who were in Vegas, that we're going to have sort of some similar dialogues here and there, but let me just start by saying what we have achieved over the past year since a year and a half now, I guess, since we launched the Origin strategy at JCK in Las Vegas, not this last Vegas, but the one before. And of course, we've had, as we know, a very challenging backdrop. But even amongst that difficulties, those headwinds, we have made some significant challenges throughout this period. On the upstream, I think it's fair to say that we've stayed very focused on responsible production. You'll know that we've said many times that the natural diamond industry, particularly from a De Beers perspective, is making sure we align production to demand. There is no point in producing more and more carats if we don't have a market to sell them through. As we've spoken about those headwinds, it's been important to make sure that we align that production. And we've made a number of cuts over the last couple of years. And even with those, it's been a little challenging here and there, and we'll touch on that as we go through. But I think what's really important is to make sure that we're all playing our part. Maybe not the custodian anymore, Sabyasachi Ray, but we're certainly a leader in the industry, and we have to play our part in that. And with leadership comes responsibility and ensuring that people follow. It's been a difficult start to 2026. We've had to take some difficult decisions. You'll have seen earlier in certain announcements by De Beers that we've taken the difficult decision to pause production at Venetia mine. That has a significant impact on our operations there, but it's a pause of production. It's not care and maintenance. It's not stopping. It's pausing for a couple of years while we finish and concentrate on finalising the infrastructure for the underground project. And we feel that's appropriate at this time to make sure that, one, there's a right flow of product coming through the system, but perhaps even more importantly as well, is that we're managing our cash flow. And I think as we've had our results recently, people will know that we've been having to manage our cash flow very carefully over the last year or so, and we're definitely in the right direction. But it's not all about production in the present time. What's important is to ensure that we continue to invest in the future. And in Angola, you'll know that we've announced that we started with the drilling in 2026, a program that we've had underway for a little while, but we were able to actually state that we've identified 10 new kimberlites on the Macondo concession. This is great news. They also diamondiferous kimberlites. For those who, I learned a lot from our Chief Operating Officer, Kevin Smith, who tells me that it's all about sevens. You get 7,000 kimberlites roughly around the world. 700 of those are actually diamondiferous. Around 70 of them have become economically viable, and around 7 are actually what we call supermines. And I'm looking at my colleagues when I say supermines, they're talking about the Zhuanengs of this world, etc., Arapas, which we like to call the Prince of Mines, or I do know that our minister has changed that to the Queen of Mines for some reason. But anyway, we'll take either. It's a supermine in whichever way we look at it. But what's important is this is the beers, even in the most difficult situation, ensuring that we're investing into the future and making sure that in the coming decades that we're hopeful that we indeed have that production for the longer term. We've also, I think, importantly said, as I look at my colleagues from Botswana, we obviously agreed our sales agreements, and we've been busy in Botswana making sure that we're implementing many of the, not just the direct sales agreements and mine leases, but a number of the areas of development that we're very proud of and excited about, particularly with things like graduates and training. Diamonds for Development is on its way. So a lot of those things are being taking up our time and making sure that we're getting the right entrepreneurial skills there for the future. Likewise, Building Forever. Again, in difficult cash flow situations, you want to make sure that we don't lose sight of those good corporate and social enterprises that we need to make sure are successful. And whether that's things like the Okavango terminal that we're doing with National Geographic, that's protecting 13 million acres and supporting sustainable livelihoods. So again, a really important part of making sure that the story of natural diamonds remains robust, and it allows the likes of Shweta to tell those lovely stories to everyone and realize that diamonds aren't just about diamonds and the revenue, but the impact it has on society as well. Again, I've mentioned Venetia. That's been a major part of what we've done. And so in the upstream, a busy period, very, very busy period over this last year or so. But again, when we look at what we'd announced in Vegas at the JCK, we're very much still on track to achieve those objectives. Into my part of the world, midstream, my comfort zone, I guess. Although, let's be honest, it hasn't been that comfortable over the last couple of years. It's been a difficult period where we've had to make sure that we've taken some leadership decisions, making sure that we didn't oversell into a market, that we ensured that we were continuing to maintain confidence in our product into the future. And a part and parcel of that, of course, was, and particularly declining production, was ensuring that we realigned and reduced, consolidated our site order list. So that happened, or was completed, and the first site of the new contract period happened, in fact, last site in Site 6. And we've moved ahead with that. And again, I think really making sure we continue to support that site order system. It's very important that we maintain that, and we believe that that's definitely the right route to market into the future that will give long-term sustainability, not just for De Beers and its partners, but actually for the entire industry. You'll also notice that in the midstream, we're talking a lot about provenance and a lot of the ability to track diamonds back, whether it's the country of origin, making sure that, again, we can connect to the good stories that happen on the route of the diamonds, not just at the point of production, but as we've heard on many occasions, the excellent stories that are told here in India as well, the wonderful hospitals, schools, so on and so forth, that we certainly proud to be a part of and hear about with our site order partners. So how do we make sure we can tell those stories and show that that diamond has somehow touched people in the right way on their journey? Well, that's Tracer. It seems hard to believe today, but we launched Tracer probably almost a decade ago that we launched. We were doing it back in 2017. We also brought it back in to make sure it works. It wasn't the easiest thing to achieve a truly blockchain mine to market, if you like, traceability program that really did have a true blockchain ability to do that. But what's become important, we realized, was this was always intended to be an industry solution. And so as we finalize the technical challenges and move forward, we knew it was then time to really look at getting partners to come and join us. And our first port of call, of course, was the GIA, the trusted partner in the United States of America, and two very much leading parts of the value chain coming together to make sure traceability is indeed independent into the future. We signed an MOU back in Vegas the year before. It took us 12 months, but these things happen. You know, it does take a little while sometimes. But we were really excited to announce a year later at the show that Tracer had taken, in fact, a 30% equity stake. And that's the first drawdown of De Beers. We will take ourselves below 50%. And during that process as well, we also brought in a new CEO, Gillian Wilk, who came from the GIA. That's a coincidence, as it happens, but she does have an awful lot of knowledge and work very closely with Tracer. And she's hit the ground running. And her objectives are very much, obviously, to increase the usership and utilization of Tracer, get more countries on board, get more stories into the store, so it's there to take place. That's why we've got it. But also to continue to drive down the equity stake. So we're well on track for doing that as well. Then we looked at the downstream, and we said in Vegas that we would reset the downstream. And we've continued, I'm pleased to say, to heavily invest in category marketing. Last year's investment was indeed the largest in a decade, really pushing ahead to make sure that we're pulling funds from across, and we'll touch a little bit around that as we go forward. But it was really around making sure that we've got the ability to drive natural diamond demand, and that we have sufficient resources to do so, not only from De Beers, but from our partners, and likewise working with the NDC under the new leadership of Amber Pepper, and really trying to unite the industry through what ultimately became known as the Orlando Accord. And I think that was a great opportunity to see producers really coming on board and sharing, if you like, in both the burden and the success of marketing. Really being a part of it is very important. And through the NDC with Botswana and Angola, we started to move that forward. And I'm pleased to say that the GJEPC have also become members. Congratulations on joining the NDC. I think that's wonderful to see not just producers, but indeed core industry partners really playing their role as well in that part. And of course, at the same time, I won't go into the FM side of things because we're going to hear lots of exciting things about that from Shweta. But indeed, with De Beers London, now established and pushing forward as well, we had the launch of the new store in Paris. And I'm pleased to say that is busy and doing well at the moment. A great launch it was. Then we go into the pivoting of synthetics. It was important for us having initially launched Lightbox, which has had its own interesting feedbacks from everyone. But ultimately, as we will see, we've pretty much achieved, certainly the industry has achieved its objective of seeing these products coexisting but quite differentiating. I'll come on to that later. I think that is a really important point. We've pivoted. E6 has become a really important part of the De Beers group and what it does from a synthetic perspective. It always was, and then we got its focus back to the technological aspects. Clean tech partnerships with Oxytech Solutions using E6's boron-doped diamonds to make industrial cleaning safer, greener, and more effective is just one of the exciting moves forward that we're seeing in that pivot. And you may have also seen reports on the planned US high-pressure, high-temperature synthetic diamond grit plant in Georgia that we're looking to build together as well. So really great advancements with the US government showing lots of interest in seeing where Element 6 goes into the future. So overall, I think it's fair to say that we've had a story of delivery, momentum, progress. We moved every part of the business from what we call the three streams, the upstream, midstream, and downstream, to ensure that we strengthen De Beers and we make sure that we've got the momentum to take us not only through 2026, but beyond into a really successful 2027 and beyond. Just on streamlining, I just wanted to state that we underpin that with streamlining. You know that we took $100 million of costs out of the business back in 24. We took a further $30 million out in 2025. And of course, with these continued restructures that we're doing at the moment, particularly around Venetia, and likewise, as we look at our head office in the UK, and now we look at support, we're making some continued savings to make sure that this balance sheet is extremely strong into the future. A lot of people asking me about the Anglo-American separation. It's probably the most asked question I get, and it's the one I can least answer. So that's just a way of life, I'm afraid. But look, I mean, obviously the process remains commercially confidential, but we are making good progress, is what we hear from our colleagues in Anglo. Discussions are advanced, and we do have very supportive shareholders remaining, obviously Anglo-American. But as I've said earlier, we have our other shareholder here with us today, represented the government of the Republic of Botswana, who have really shown a deep commitment, and I suspect will continue to show that commitment and possibly even have a greater one into the future. So all I can say on that, I think we're all hoping that we move forward sooner rather than later with news that we can really sort of settle the business for the longer term. So we talked a little bit about the challenging environment and the changing environment. So I think as I look back, you know, you almost need to always just pop our heads back a little bit to 2025 and understand how we started. You'll see here that we kicked off the year pretty well, actually. Invariably, January, February, a good months to start the year. We always come back with this eternal optimism that diamond business tends to give. And if you recall, then we were hit rather rudely with tariffs back in 25, which certainly derailed us and stalled the business for certainly a couple of months. Of course, there was the continued Ukraine war. Sanctions are still in place. There's the continued issues in the Middle East, all contributing to what was then sort of cautious and adding to higher costs. I think likewise, touched on tariffs, but tariffs have had probably more the volatility of tariffs than anything else, the constant changes. 1 minute we're in one place and then very quickly we move back. And nowhere more than here would we understand that as tariffs have moved backwards and forwards as trade deals have at one point come in and very quickly gone back out again. We've spoken more about China. I think China has been a major part of our challenges over this period. There's no doubt that coming out of COVID, we saw some tremendous changes, both in culturally, marriage is dropping probably to about 40% of what they were at the peak in 2013. So a massive change in the way that diamonds were sold, to be quite honest. We also saw confidence going a little bit. And of course, retail sales falling from probably a peak of 17% of the world market to roughly around 4 or 5% today. That's 30% max of what they were. That's a huge drop. Even more importantly was, of course, it meant more to the midstream, more to many people in this room, that we were historically for the last few decades seeing China grow year on year, multiple stores, store growth, which meant that to the midstream, that was a bigger market share than it actually felt at retail. Obviously, of course, we get what we call the backward ripple that hit us very heavily, I think, through 25, starting earlier in 24, to be fair, as we saw a lot of stock being recycled either within, but also exiting, causing us a lot of issues over that period of time. I'm pleased to say that what we're seeing today at that much lower level of demand is a stability. And stability is probably the order of the day today as we look around the business in general, but certainly China's stable. I think, interesting enough, the US cost of living probably hasn't been as bad as we thought, surprisingly, with everything going on, probably wasn't so bad. And of course, last year we did see, as we were pulling back on supply, others obviously following suit we saw as well. Angola tried to somewhat contradicted that, and we saw supply increasing. I'm pleased to say that we all seem to be getting to a much more balanced position today, and things seem to be in a better place. I've talked about the pipeline destocking, not just out of China, but in general. Because as prices were falling, people started to destock across the pipeline. And again, I think we've got into a much more equilibrium in that space now as we look forward. And of course, gold prices. Gold prices threw us all over the place, particularly as this year we saw them rocketing post Iran, and things then actually coming back down again, calming as we went into the next phase. And indeed, probably a good sort of 23% down today from the peak. And what's interesting to me is that we don't really seem to hear much noise about that. When we hear about diamond prices going up or down, we tend to hear down. We hear a lot. There's a lot of noise, but gold doesn't seem to get the same attention. But obviously, it impacts us on diamond content, and so we're pleased to see it balanced again, seeing a better place, and certainly seeing things moving forward better as well. Again, I think these challenges, to some extent, though, have also been somewhat pulled together as an industry, because we've seen consolidation across the industry, and of course, the bottom line there, we shouldn't do it. Synthetics, LGDs also had an important part to play when we look at the headwinds that we faced over this period. As it happens, as I said, we've seen prices dropping significantly, should we say, particularly on the B2B, but also as we saw in Vegas now, prices at the B2C level in the US also coming down at a fairly regular rate. And we're actually starting to see a much, and I'll show some encouraging data in a moment. We're seeing particularly independents moving ahead in a much better space. So overall, difficult 25, but as we come into 2026, again, kicked off very well in the first January, February. Lots of excitement, as I recall, particularly at the February site. And then, of course, what do we have? Well, we have one thing that was Martin gave us a little bit of a surprise in his team when they dropped prices. And then, of course, we had the Iran war exploding and the impacts economically of that. What's interesting for me is that it shows that the industry is in a much more resilient space because it's quickly bounced back, and I can see now that we're feeling much more robust as we go into this next phase. And that is probably why, to be honest. So this is looking back at 2025, where, as I said, we always look back to look forward. You remember the heady days of 2021. We must confess they weren't real. They were somewhat exaggerated as we came out of COVID. We saw prices getting ahead of them, lots of speculation, and then we saw a huge correction. And that huge correction, as we know, has been very painful. So 2 years of a severe drop after the 2022, which to some was just coming to the end of the peak. You remember in February 2022, prices did peak for rough diamonds and to some degree for polished, but they were way ahead of polished. So as we've seen the market come through, we saw the first positive territory globally in 2025. So it's a little nudge, but at least it's the right color. And that's the important part of this, is that we're starting to see the natural diamond industry recovering at a retail level. And of course, as that happens, we're starting to feel now, as we're looking at production and making sure we're aligning production to that demand, we're starting to see as well the confidence coming back into the marketplace. This is a slide I was referring to earlier, which I think is really exciting. This is the independence of the United States. What we're seeing there is really good, positive, double-digit growth, pretty much month on month, with the exception of a slowdown in May. But really exciting to see the independents faring so well as they move back in many ways, pivoting back into natural, and really seeing consumers coming in and pulling natural through. Likewise, as I said, what we're seeing on the right of this is, again, why it's feeling a little better, is that we're seeing supply come back into line with that new levels of demand, which is the opportunity that we can see for both purchasing, future demand, and price growth, of course, which is important to all of us. So again, production, just to remind ourselves, at the peak of production, we're sitting probably around a little over 170 million carats. But more importantly was that probably pre-COVID, the average was around 150 million carats. So you can see we're down roughly to 2/3 of that. Interesting enough, coming back into line. And as I look forward, we're going to see that production, as I said earlier, very stable, I think, over these next couple of years, as the slide is showing, as we start to see both operations in Canada starting to wind down and see the end of life of mine in some cases. And likewise, as I said, as we start to look at Venetia, we will see uplifts elsewhere. That's normal. That's what we're seeing and looking for. But overall, I think the demand-supply dynamic looking very positive over that period of time. So why the rebound, effectively? Well, as I said, the most important thing we have to ensure we do is marketing. Many people in this room have given me a lot of grief over the years that De Beers doesn't do enough marketing. We should be putting more money into marketing. And as I said, eventually we've responded, but we should note that we're not the only people in the diamond industry. Yeah, you know, our market share is no longer 80%. We're sitting at roughly a 30% market share, and yet we still really drive the marketing dollars into the business. And that's why, as I said, it was so important to see the Rwanda Accord and seeing other producers really starting to stand up, other larger producers, making sure that they're also paving the way and making sure that we're all in this together. I come back, collaboration is a big part of what we're talking about today and how we operate together. So Rwanda Accord, a really great a great move forward. I already mentioned the bottom bullet point that it's great to see the German Jewelry Council joining that. Likewise, on lab grown, what we've seen is that prices continue to be quite polarized still at retail. I mean, from $100 sitting typically in the likes of Walmart, where, you know, products very, 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 very cheap. And still in some cases, we're seeing the opposite, still exaggerated prices. We can see that. But that trend is changing. The trend is coming down in the US quite significantly. And likewise, the major retailers showing some, what I think is some really positive and confident moves, and recognizing that whilst lab grown is here, there's also a real need to push back into natural. So the likes of Signet pushing ahead with Blue Nile, really pushing down and making sure that they've got a full natural program, working closely, continually with De Beers. You know, we've run a couple of programs with them on marketing. We said that's important. Signet in the US, Chow Tai Fook in China, and I'll let Shweta talk a little bit more about what we're doing here in India later. So again, I think those price challenges, they've been there. They're not going to disappear totally overnight, but we're getting into a much better place, and we've seen that shift, which is so important. Spoken a lot about supply. I think we are into a much better dynamic. There's reasons why we are where we are. It's great to see the smiles on people's faces as we walk around the show, meetings we've had over the last month or two, where we're starting to see a much more positive bounce in the walk, shall we say, better body language, recognizing that things are moving in the right direction. But there's a reason for it, and that's what's important. We are still in a difficult position. We are still coming out of this, but we definitely feel like we've bottomed, and supply is part of that. It's important that we continue to monitor and work to get ourselves back to where we should be. And one that I think is really important is differentiation. Differentiation, not just between natural and lab, which will coexist as long as they're very clear that the consumer understands that they're different products. We can detect they are different. That's great going forward. Let's not pretend we're something we're not. But it's a real shift, I think, on differentiation. Also, as I've spoken about with things like traceability, really giving stories where the products come from. Add the story to the content, as we'll see in a minute, as Shweta goes through some of the advertising that remains so important. So, as I said, as we go into this next phase, all about partnerships. So effectively, collaborate. So there's one thing you walk away from this meeting today will be, we all are in this together. Yeah, it's about partnerships. We've spoken a lot about it in the last couple of days at various functions, particularly this morning when we were launching, that it's important that we're all playing our role. So whether it's site holders that we're working very closely with, whether it's in marketing partnerships with them, tripartite relationships with retailers, all of these things with our government partners, that's why we're here, all to make sure that we're working together with one goal in mind. I've mentioned the retailers here. We've got the great work we're doing with Tanish, with Indra as it goes through it, working with the council to make sure that all comes together. Governments, in this case, in India, and I'll let Emma, I won't take her glory, but really important what's been happening and the work behind the scenes with tariffs. Again, collaboration has been very important on both sides of that. Working with industry bodies. And of course, when you get to things like ambassadors, who's out there telling the story? Who's on social media? How do we make sure we're putting ourselves in the right place and we're not just doing the old things? Many times people have said to me, we just need to go back to the old De Beers adverts, bring back the shadow campaign. Actually, that's not what's going to drive the business anymore. What's going to drive the millennials to buy diamonds is on these things at the end of the day. So let's change it. Let's really get out there and do it. And what do? They follow the big celebs. So important that we've got ambassadors. It's important we've got influencers that are really telling our story. And that's a lot of work that we've been doing. Again, behind the scenes to make sure the right people are saying the right things about our products that sees them going forward. The Taylor Swift effect for the old Minecart is just one example of what happens when someone gets excited and just goes out and buys it. Right, on that note, let me say thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and I'll hand over to Emma. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, even. Can you hear me at the back? Excellent. So I want to talk about India's leadership. As Paul has suggested, I spend a lot of my time traveling around the world talking to governments anywhere where we have a thriving diamond industry, or where we want to have a thriving diamond industry. But I'm going to spend some time talking particularly about India, the government of India, and the industry that we have here. So India's diamond industry has never been more influential than it is today. In 2026, India holds leadership positions across some of the industry's most important institutions and initiatives. We've heard about some of that from Paul already, but what I particularly want to focus on is the bringing together of industry with government. From the chairmanship of the Kimberley process under Yashvir Singh, GJEPC's signing of the Luanda Accord and joining the Natural Diamond Council, Mehul Shah's presidency of the World Federation of Diamond Bourses, and Anup Mehta's vice presidency of the World Diamond Council. This convergence of leadership is unprecedented, and it reflects not only India's central role in the diamond value chain, but also the confidence the global industry has placed in Indian leadership. So as chair of the Kimberley process, India has chosen a powerful theme: credibility, compliance, and consumer confidence. These are not three separate priorities. These are three pillars representing trust. And at a time when our industry is navigating evolving consumer expectations, greater regulatory scrutiny, and increasing product complexity, trust has never been more important. So credibility earns trust. Compliance protects that trust, and the result? Consumer confidence. India is uniquely positioned to use its leadership to bring the industry together, to work with governments, and to shape a common approach that strengthens trust in natural diamonds for the long term. So let me briefly touch on each of these three pillars. The first one, credibility. Credibility comes from leadership, from influence, and the ability to bring people together around common goals. And today, India sits right at the center of the global diamond ecosystem, from manufacturing, consumer market, and an increasingly influential voice in industry and in global governance. And the fact that the global industry has entrusted India with these leadership roles speaks for itself, both in terms of credibility and, crucially, the convening power to help shape our industry's future. Secondly, compliance. Trust requires more than good intentions. It requires standards that are implemented and applied consistently across the value chain. Now, India's BIS diamond standard was a really important and welcome step at the beginning of this year. It emphasizes transparency, disclosure, and consumer protection right here in one of the world's most important diamond markets. And what's additionally encouraging is that we're seeing similar thinking emerging all over the world. Whether it's SIBJO's nomenclature guidance, evolving disclosure requirements in key markets, the position that many African producer countries have taken on terminology, or the GIA's decision to distinguish more clearly between natural and synthetic products, the direction of travel is consistent and compelling. And the North Star of the growing global consensus is a very simple principle: that consumers should always know and understand what they're buying. So standards matter, but compliance matters even more. And the true measure of success and credibility is not just the adoption of standards on paper. The true measure of success is implementation in practice. And India has an opportunity here to demonstrate what effective compliance looks like and to help create a level playing field all around the world, built on transparency and trust. And that brings me to the third pillar, consumer confidence. Credibility and compliance ultimately exist for one reason, the consumer. This is not about limiting innovation. It's not about restricting choice. In fact, consumers should be free to choose whichever product best meets their needs. But every choice should be informed. That means clear language, clear nomenclature, clear disclosure, clear differentiation. Consumers should never have to guess what they're buying. And when consumers trust what they're buying, they're more confident in the category, and more confident in the purchase, and more confident in the industry behind it. So that trust is absolutely the foundation for the long-term value of natural diamonds. Consumer trust cannot rely on voluntary actions alone. It must be reinforced by credible standards, consistent enforcement, and industry-wide adherence to common principles. And when trust is strong, confidence grows. And when confidence grows, it supports the long-term value and sustainability of the whole natural diamond industry. India is uniquely positioned to champion this agenda because very few countries can bring together producers, manufacturers, traders, retailers, and regulators in the way that India can. So all of this leads us on a journey together to an exciting destination. Let us come together behind the 3 C's that India has set out for us. Let's strengthen credibility through collective leadership. Let's reinforce compliance through consistent implementation of standards. And let's build consumer confidence through transparency, disclosure, and clear differentiation. Across the industry, around the world, we're already seeing momentum behind these principles. And the opportunity now is to turn that momentum into alignment. India has the platform. India has the credibility. And India has the ability to bring the industry and governments together around this shared vision of trust, transparency, and consumer confidence. Because ultimately, protecting consumer confidence is not the responsibility of any one company, any one institution, or any one country. It's a shared responsibility. And if we get this right, we'll strengthen not only confidence in natural diamonds, but the future of the industry itself. I'm going to add one extra C to our 3 C's, and that is communication. And with communication, for me, comes marketing. How are we communicating to the consumer? And I want to hand over to Shweta Harit now to give you a glimpse into her amazing work here in India.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Paul. I think they've set me up very well. So I always joke that mine is always the exciting part because I have lots of videos so I can entertain you and wake everyone up. Okay, so starting with the first slide here. Sorry. I don't have to wake everyone up. Everyone is absolutely awake is what I'm told. So I'm only going to entertain at this point. So what you see on this slide is really our role in the industry. We don't just run campaigns. We don't just sell jewelry. We operate actually 2 engines and we want them to operate in harmony. And that's how we actually have multiple touch points and bring one halo. On the right-hand side of this slide, you can see the 3 Ds, and we talk about them a lot. Desire, because you want to see that wonder in the eyes of the client. You want to differentiate because they need to know that natural and synthetic are 2 different products altogether. And defend because we face a lot of misinformation. So we spend a lot of energy and investment on defense. And that's our model. So if anyone thinks about how do we run our category or how do we run our client-facing part of the business, this is the slide for it. But we also are very aware that our client is shifting, society is changing, and which is why we build our strategy on these 3 Ds and on the shifts that we are seeing. We know that desire is also evolving. While in India, diamonds still stay as the top status, we see in other markets, while diamonds might still be wanted, they may not be salient, which means they are not top of mind. And the best test is you give someone $3,500 and ask them what they want to buy. Thankfully, in India, they still want to buy diamonds. But what we're seeing in the West is actually they might choose a holiday, they might choose tech. So it's our role to actually bring that up on the list. And what we try to do at every point is continue to keep that. Now, that's the first D. The second D is we need to make sure that the two products are completely different. There might be visual parity, but they're not parity in any other way, right? So that's very, very important. And as we go into the AI world, what we're going to see is another shift, right? What defend is going to be super important because some of our synthetic brands tend to be native to online commerce, and so they do very well when it comes to AI. And because they're forced to talk about facts every time, so they talk pricing with facts, so they talk about their sustainability with facts, they tend to go higher when you search on AI. So it's something that we have to watch. But what we're seeing at the bottom is equally important, which is that the Gen Z is going to be the next consumer and they are changing. We're seeing marriage rates change. I have a 20-year-old at home, and I'm not sure he's going to offer anyone a ring. He might offer them a tech. I don't know what they're going to do. So we've got to keep an eye on that as well. I just wanted to show my first video, which is just an excerpt of what we've done in the last year across the world. Um, and I think a lot of people keep asking us about what's the new news, etc. I think Desert Diamonds has been one of the biggest news of last year. And I just wanted to bring this story alive, going from the left of the screen up to the right. We we launched in the States. China went out last week, and I think it was a success. We had a lot of retailers who signed up. And what you see on the right-hand side is January this year. With Tanishq, we launched it at Paris Couture Week. So here is an example of something actually going across all our key markets. But I thought I wanted to focus a bit more on India because today is really talking about consumer insights for India. So if I bring just 4 trends, what we're seeing in India is 51% of sales are going to be Gen Z. So we have to think about them as we go along. Self purchase is one of the largest growing segments in India. almost 60% of the sales are coming from self purchase. I think what else is growing is really different occasions. And when we look at search, especially even today in India, people search, where do I wear diamonds? How do I pair them? Because remember that the penetration in India still is at 12%. It's an 88% gold market. So we need to answer those questions. And what I have seen across focus groups or any conversations I have with clients, the word solitaire seems to just drive premium everywhere. And we as natural need to own that word. I do not want to lose that word at all because I can see that in the States we have lost some of the business here. And so today I wanted to focus a bit on India for India. We're not going to shoehorn any international strategy or any international campaign to India. We'll build for India. And I chose this image because we in India, one of the C's that we follow is cricket. This was our second year at it. And we sponsored IPL again. I don't know whether Kiran Gems is in the room or not, but thanks to them, we got the jewelry to every corner of India. It was not going to be possible without them. And I'm going to play what we did.
It's a natural diamond that has been
इसमें असली हीरा कहाँ मिलता है?
Shone bright like a diamond.
the natural diamonds of the week.
लेकिन असली हीरा हमें कहां से मिला इस मुकाबले में यूं
इस हफ्ते के कुछ और असली हीरे कौन रहे?
Real diamonds of the week.
GJEPC और De Beers इन क्रिकेट लाइव के नेचुरल और असली हीरों की चमक कभी कम न होने दे।
And just to talk about our current heartthrob, Abhishek, who also wears his tennis necklace at 35 degrees while batting.
हमेशा natural, on and off the pitch.
And just a small story there, we actually haven't even boosted that post. So that's organic. So in the first half an hour of putting the post up, I think we had 1 million views, just to give you a sense of that. Then Indra, again, keeping India for India in mind, we know that the growth is coming from tier 1 and tier 2 markets. So we have to go where the growth is. Again, video. And just to remind everyone, so Indra basically does three things. We have training, and it's in multiple languages. All our campaigns are available to any retailer who has signed up. So you can simply take the De Beers logo out and put your own logo. So I've been asked why we never use Bollywood actresses in our campaigns. We don't, because this campaign can be used in any store at any time, and no star will give you rights to be used anywhere in the world and at any point in time. So it's very important because these campaigns are actually used by several retailers across the country. And the third part is we've created three trays, a 25 carat tray, a 50 carat tray, and a 75 carat tray. So if you don't know where to actually buy diamonds, we actually have made the connection between the retailer and the people who actually make the jewelry. So we do three things, okay? And I just wanted to show you how we bring our campaign into store. Thanks. I think Paul has mentioned about Tanishq. So it's been 2 years now since we've been working with them. I think it's been an amazing experience. I think we build on each other quite a lot. We do campaigns. We do diamond expertise centers. If you haven't been to a store, they actually have an expertise center where they test the diamond for you when you go in. And we also do a lot of diamond appreciation zones. So they invite their purple customers and we actually take them through a full diamond experience. So again, some really excellent work. I'm going to show you another video. And I think the fourth pillar, and a very, very important pillar, because it was a choice we made, and I know Paul actually mentioned it, but this is our second year of really getting into category marketing. And we had a similar retail interaction, and someone said, oh, but De Beers has to just come back and do their campaigns. And I think I quoted a similar number, I think. You know, We all have to do it at the same time, but our objective here was actually to create new occasions. We didn't want to do what other retailers do, because that I think is certainly their job. So to focus on wedding or Rakhi or Diwali, we were trying to create something that they will not do and really bring reasons to get people back into store. And I want to just also mention that Besties is what is live. I don't know if you're traveling around the city, you might see it there. It was Friendship Day in India on the 2nd of August, and we drove about 5,000 people into store just on that one day. So another very, very big achievement. I'm going to show you another video, and I promise you it's my last. Sorry, it's not playing well.
I see you, my daughter, 16 and already owning your story. For you, only natural diamonds.
The truest friendships cannot be manufactured. They simply unfold naturally. Love from Bestie Collection. Natural diamond bracelets for you and your bestie.
Only love for my people and myself to manifest my best life. Nature's cosmic energy. Now mine. Natural diamond intention pendants.
And then just my final slide, just bringing it all in summary. First pillar is India for India. And it's not a strategy that will be shoehorned from anywhere else. It's a very, very important market. It's a market where jewelry is cultural. And my favorite example is that in the US, you might buy 6 pieces of jewelry in your entire life. In India, in the very first year, you will have 6 pieces. So it's very, very different. So we need to keep in step with India. Second is we need to go where the growth is. So we really need to go into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 markets, and that will be done by Indra. We keep our beacon retailer partnership because really through them, we can inspire the other retailers, and we will partner them for campaigns, for diamond experiences. And the final one is we want to build rituals that are modern, where you can see where the culture is growing. And female friendships, for example, is something that's really growing in India, which is why we did Besties. And we're going to add our 4th campaign because I think solitaires is a battleground that I want to make sure that it stays with the natural diamond only. And I think that campaign will be live in October. So just pre-Diwali, and it's going to be Love from Hubby. So that will be our 4th love ritual, if you will like. Anyway, that's me. Paul, I think I hand back to you.
Shweta, Emma, thank you very much. And hopefully, Sabyasachi, that was sufficient energy that we were looking for here in incredible India. I'm not going to take long. I just want to wrap things up a little bit and just a little recap. Why are we here ultimately? Why are we saying this? We're here together. This is about partnership. It's about collaboration. It's really a call to action that says, how do we make this thrust going forward better? We've shared a couple of ideas. I think the last one there talking of how do we make sure we tell the true diamond story? I think the rituals here, the second piercing campaign for me is one of the best campaigns I've seen coming out of De Beers for many years, actually, as a single campaign. I think it really touched people's hearts. And I think it really did make a lot of us, a lot of his daughters think a little bit, whether we're here in India or elsewhere in the world for that matter. But those rituals, what is the story? Let's find it, let's work on it, and let's make sure we get some marketing dollars behind it. I'm a big one for differentiation. We'll double down on it. We have to make sure it happens. It's really, really imperative that we all know as we move on to the next one with compliance. What was it? I put you on the spot. Confidence, compliance gives you consumer confidence. That's 4 C's, not C in reality. But coming back is that it's about trust. And when we were at the inauguration this morning, it was interesting to listen to Minister Gwande, who was saying that about brand India. Brands are built on trust. That's the only thing you can have. And without that, what are you going to have? So it is about standards. He spoke about standards. He spoke about quality. How do we drive this? That we're not just going to Paris, Europe, Switzerland, wherever it may be that we think the highest branded quality is. It can be right here on the doorstep. I've seen the skills that exist in India, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see that quality of product coming forward to the international stage. So not just diamonds for India, but diamonds from India for India, but also globally. Let's go and compete with all the brands out there because we can do that. But to do it, trust. To have trust, we need the extra 3 C's. So let's make sure we are indeed strengthening them. Last one, I think on the right for me, yet another C. It's all C's and D's in our industry today. But the last one to me, as I said, is the most important one for me personally. And that's collaboration. Because if we're going to succeed on anything else here, we can't do it alone. We all go much farther together, as they say. So let's make sure that we use the opportunity. I think we've just about got us back on time. So we'll stop there and again say a huge thank you for everyone taking time out of the day to come and join us. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you very much.